Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tales from a Professional Nerd. Episode 66, I think. My name is Bryan C.P. Steele, and I will be your nerd today. Let's see, I'm going to move the microphone a little closer to me because I've got my air conditioning box running, and that is going to make people probably hear a little bit of a hum. Hopefully not, but it is hot and gross in my studio today, so I am going to leave it on because I think that you would rather hear that tiny little hum than me complain about being fat and gross and hot on an Indiana summer afternoon. All right, so let's get this show started with, as we often do, a week in the life of Bryan. So it has been a good week. Not just a good week. I'm going to paint it as a pretty damn fine week, actually. Not only did I get signed on to play in an ongoing D&D internet game with my close friends, who, by the way, the DM is letting me play test something that I'll be talking a little bit about later. But also, I got kind of conscripted through TikTok channels to possibly play in an all TikTok personality game. That's still formative, but be cool if it happens. Again, I love playing. I love getting an opportunity to flex my role-playing muscles. It has been a pretty solid, good week for 40k, Warhammer 40,000, 40k rumors and rules and things that have come out. Very happy. My Necrons are pleased. Seemingly, all the new stuff that's coming out, it seems like maybe over the last couple of years, the guys at Games Workshop heard our cries, our sad mewlings from the shadows. Please let our guys be good again. In fact, not this weekend, but next weekend, I am going to play my first game of 9th edition 40K with one of my close friends, and there is a chance, just a chance, that I might be able to find a way to set up the cameras and maybe record the game as an episode next week. But if that is the case, it will mean that the episode will probably be delayed a couple of days because I normally put these out on Friday. He's not coming over until Saturday, so forth and so on. We'll see. I don't know. I'm not promising anything by any stretch of the imagination. But either way, I'm going to get to play my first game with the new rules, and I'm really excited. I'm jazzed. It's been a long time since I've been excited about 40k, and I think the new edition is going to, not just because we're getting new toys and stuff, but I think just the new edition is really kind of bringing a little of that love back. So, good job, Games Workshop. Let's see, what else? Oh, yeah. Let's see what else I've been working on my spycraft stuff. I finished another chapter for the opening books, and it is in the hands of the editorial staff, who seem to be very happy with my work so far. So, thumbs up there. What else? I've got a really cool meeting hopefully set up for next week with my the guy in charge over at Resnova to talk about some Warzone stuff. And if that meeting goes well, hopefully I will be able to start disseminating a little more cool information to you guys about the new game. And on top of that, because you guys, I'm sure you're tired of hearing me say it. Well, I've been working on the Shadowrun novel as well. Obviously, still plugging along on that. But I just got out of a meeting with the head of fiction over at Catalyst Game Labs, the people who put out Shadowrun. And not only are they happy so far with what I've been doing, but it looks like I'm going to get lined up for another Shadowrun novel after this one, and then when that is done, there's a very distinct chance that I might get a chance to play a little bit in here for some BattleTech fiction. Super psyched. I used to play a lot of BattleTech back in the day, and I always thought it was a fun game. The world is super rich and super awesome, so it'll be fun to stretch my my fiction fingers in that world as well, and join the ranks of Michael Stackpole and I think Forbeck did at least one BattleTech novel, but I'll get a chance to kind of join the ranks of some of the real greats in my industry. So I'm pretty psyched about that. But what I did want to mention, I showed you just the cover of this writer's Bible. So when we started talking about the fact that I might be doing some BattleTech writing, they sent me this file. John sent me the file, and this is, I obviously can't show it to you. There's a lot of classified information. But it is a legitimate, it's almost like a source book in and of itself. It's almost 30 pages, 27 pages, I think. Yeah. That is filled with everything that someone would need to start writing BattleTech, but down to there's this really cool table in here that is all of the military ranks between the different factions and the different clans, the different nations, and who's subservient to who. And it is really like a class. I've worked for a lot of companies, and I've had a few different writer's Bibles handed to me. Hell, I've made a couple of them for other people, and I am gonna say this, that the guys at Catalyst, John and his guys, for their fiction staff, the writer's Bible for BattleTech, this is one of the most useful and well put together documents for a writer that I've ever seen. So hats off to those guys. They really know how to treat their contracted writers and make sure that they've got the information at their fingertips for what they want to do. So I know it's a ways off because I've got all kinds of other stuff, Shadowrun stuff in the queue before then, but I'm excited to even just kind of get my fingers in the BattleTech pie, and hell, maybe one of these episodes I will do a deep dive into Battle Run. It's like Shadowrun and BattleTech had a baby. I don't know. Into some BattleTech stuff. I almost said Battle Run again. Let's take a drink. Let's see, what else? Got some stuff for my Star Wars Legion. Finished a commission for some dust models. Finished those guys off. I've got one commission in the queue, and then I'm pretty much open to paint my own stuff for a little while. It's just crazy. That's just crazy sauce. Actually get to paint my own stuff. I haven't even put together my Necrons from the Indominus box yet, to tell you how busy I've been doing other people's stuff and work. So time to get caught up and maybe have some time to myself. My birthday's right around the corner. Maybe I'll take a day off and just sort of focus on playing with my toys. But I digress. Let's see, what else? I have officially sent out. I don't know if I mentioned it in the last episode or the last couple episodes, but I am putting together a source book for D&D to put on the DM's Guild, which the DM's Guild, for the people who don't know, is a collection of PDF resources, a handful that have been chosen to be print on demand. But basically it is a giant catalog of digital resources for D&D, and they're they're officially sanctioned by Wizards of the Coast, because you put it on the DM's Guild, and basically you're telling the DMs Guild, hey, if you're cool with us putting this out, I'll, and you sell it, you keep some of the money, I'll take some of the money, everybody's happy, the players get the stuff they want. And a ways back, one of my author friends mentioned that he had done a couple of projects on the DMs Guild, and that they had been paying, pretty okay. Not, nothing like, oh, I don't have to live in, I don't have to, pay my mortgage off or anything, but just there, it was basically paying for themselves and paying for a couple of his bills, and I was like, that's pretty awesome. And I started looking into the process, and I realized that I have to invest a little bit of money, but if all goes well and the product is turns out as good as I think it's going to, it should make back its money pretty quickly, and then it's effectively like royalty checks. Every once in a while you go in, you check out how many of them you've downloaded or sold, click the button, get paid. So I had taken some time in my spare time and put together a product that hopefully, if all goes well and all the art comes in and everything layout and all the playtesters, I don't have to gut I don't have to start anything from scratch. Hopefully by the end of the year I'll have this product on the DMs Guild, which I'll obviously let you guys know. So if you're a D&D player, you can go download it and revel in the amazingness. He says tongue-in-cheekly. But I'm hoping by the end of the year to have that put together. So I figured, why not start telling people a little bit about it now? Basically, it's just a collection of alternate class paths for D&D 5e. So, like, for instance, there's a monk that right now there's like the fighting monk, the drunken fist monk. There's also like the Way of the Shadows, your super ninja monks. So what I've done is I've created another class path that is none of those, but gives a monk a new way of doing stuff. And when that is created, when that PDF is available, I'll obviously do a review of it here to show off and show everybody what we've created and hopefully get you guys to go buy it. But as far as its role in This Week in Bryan is, I officially started sending it out to the second wave of playtesters. Some of you who are subscribers, you'll go, I already know about this. And so I'm excited to hear back, to get some of those notes back and get that cleaned up and ready for layout, because when the art is done, the artist has until like October to get everything squared away. But once everything's done, I can put it together and I can give it to the DMs Guild for sale. So fingers crossed, this should be relatively painless and should not only give D&D players some cool stuff to mess with, but give me another opportunity to put some of my ideas out in an official format. So super excited about that as well, which is part of what brought me to today's topic. And so today's topic, we're also going to show off the sponsored Armor Class 10 t-shirt of the week, the Shirt of Wonder. Roll a d6, and then it's got all the basic stuff that you find on pretty much every gamer shirt out there. It's a funny shirt. And so this shirt represents, in my mind, the sort of dicey, chaotic version of the rules. It's randomized tables. I know there are players out there that really hate random stuff, that would much rather everything be very specific and cut, and I know that this is the number and this is how far it goes and this is what it does, and it's all mathematically calculatable down to the decimal. And then there are other players that like to throw dice and see what happens. From a design standpoint, you got to have a little bit of both, because if you have all structure and all equation and all math, it becomes just an exercise, and you don't even necessarily need to be playing the game, because you're just basically going to be doing the math, and at some point you're going to go, oh, your equation beat my equation, handshake. And or if in the case of a role-playing game, if it's all just structured and this number beats that number every time, there's no random factor at all, you might as well just be either reading a screenplay or watching TV, or just sitting around the table telling a story. There's no game aspect to it, because there's no chance, there's no challenge or potential aspect of failure. None of that's there, because all the numbers and how they work out. So I am here to talk about the distinct different, the different thoughts of game design between the chaos of random dice, random cards, random tables, random effects, so forth and so on, and the highly structured, I can guarantee this is going to happen, I know this is going to happen every single time I do this, because that is the rules of the game. I myself lean a little closer, I'm a little more of a leaner on the chaos side of things. I don't like my games to be basically just equations. I would much rather a game be, when I'm talking about a game to a friend, when I say, hey, me and my friend played this game, I don't look at him and go, well, I got exactly 8 inches away, knowing that if I rolled 2 dice, I would definitely be within blah 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 blah. You don't talk about when the equation equals out and things happen like they're supposed to. You get excited when stuff happens that you're not expecting. Oh man, I can't believe that one lowly soldier beat like 10 of your elite troops because your dice were so bad, or because my dude was just suddenly incensed with how awesome he was. Oh, I'm out of drink. That's gonna bite me later. Nose itches. My nose itches. Sorry, guys. You guys didn't watch me scratch my nose like some kind of weirdo. But I think that I would much rather have a game that is based around quite a bit of random, because that way you have surprises. You have shocking moments, things that you aren't expecting. In the case, I'll look at, in the case of like playing a miniatures war game, is you go to roll for your charge because it's maybe not quite within range of an easy roll, and you're not gonna remember, oh, that time that my guys charged your guy and killed a bunch of them. That's not gonna be the topic of your conversation. The time that your super death killy General of Doom goes to charge my, pathetic little nobodies and falls short because of a bad die roll, or charges and then misses with all of his swings because of, statistically improbable dice. That's the stuff you're going to remember. That's the stuff that you're going to laugh about later. Maybe, bittersweet, but you're still, that's the stuff you're still going to laugh about. Games behaving like they do is normal. It's not anything special. It doesn't stand out. If you're playing chess and guess what? All of my pawns moved forward and then one of them attacked to the side, to the diagonal. That's because that's what they do. That's their normal gig. Nothing's different about that. Nothing's like, ooh. Now, you perform like some kind of crazy cool gambit that may not have worked. It was a gamble, and then, bam, they fell into your trap. That might be cool, but when it comes to just doing the ordinary, that's not something to write home about. And games with a certain amount of randomosity, chaos factor, you're more likely to have those moments where everyone at the table goes ah or ooh, based off of how that random factor came to be. I think there's definitely two different, there's different schools of thought when it comes to this sort of thing. There are people who would much rather, they never want to have to discuss a random effect. They never want to have to calculate, they never want to calculate how how this die roll applied to their game if it would have come up a 4 instead of a 3 or something like this. There's always going to be that sort of situation. But I do think overall, most gamers remember the times that stand out, not the times that everything worked exactly like it was supposed to, statistically speaking, so forth and so on. Which is why a lot of my stuff, a lot of the stuff that I put together, I like random factors. I like having, tables of random treasure. It's one of the reasons why most recently one of the Kickstarters that I was part of, the Book of Monstrous Might, every single creature that we created came with its own little random 1 to 6 treasure table. And what that did is that it gave us an opportunity to add just a tiny little bit of random story to the aftermath of the battle. Like in one instance, there's a die roll, a random die roll that comes up that the monster left behind babies, left behind, immature young or eggs or something along those lines. That's a story altering thing because, now as a player, do I take these? Do I sell them? Do I try and train them? Do we eat them? Like do they have magical properties? Do you just kill them so they don't turn out to be, horrible monsters like their parents? There's stuff that can take place, and unless you're in a pre-written adventure or a pre-written scenario that says these critters are there, that random die factor could, just by rolling a d6 and it coming up that treasure, now you've suddenly got an entire new plot line, or new facets of an old plot line. What do we do? Do we go back to the town? No way, they hate owlbear babies. There's just things to consider. And I think that this new version of 40K, for instance, there's a lot of random, but just enough. It's not everything is a die roll, but there's a little bit of re-rolling based off command points. Again, I know I'm rambling a little bit based off of what the different games that I'm trying to talk about all at the same time, but from a designer standpoint, I think a little healthy dose of chaos is good. A little dose of the unexpected can be the difference between another run-of-the-mill stereotype game or the game that the main character woke up on an island someplace else. There's other weird things that can happen based off. I mean, the sky's the limit when it comes to adding weird stuff. One of the things to get back on subject again, I'm in rare form today when it comes to being able to stay on topic. When it comes down to it, one of my favorite things that came out of, originally came out in D&D 3.5, was the Wild Mage. Basically the idea, the concept. I'm gonna lean back and be all laid back. The concept was that these mages tapped into the raw energy, the raw chaos of magic itself, grabbed a chunk and made their spells out of it. And every once in a while, it would kind of flare up as, oh well, you're touching the raw energy of chaos, the raw reality shifting juice between planes. And so every once in a while you would have what's called a wild surge. And D&D 5e, they went ahead and kept the Wild Mage, which is awesome. They made it part of the Sorcerer. One of the sorceress things you could do is get Wild Magic. And Wild Magic is, every once in a while, your magic kind of goes and does a weird thing from, you roll a percentile table. So there's a bunch of different things that can happen. From you cast Fireball as a 3rd level spell centered on yourself. Suddenly, you go to cast your spell on somebody else or whatever, and then a fireball just blows up next to you. All the way to, there's one here is you gain resistance to all damage for the next minute. If that was a combat spell, that would be amazing. All damage, not just all magical damage or all non-magical damage or all piercing damage, but just you take half damage from all sources for a minute. And a minute in D&D terms is 10 rounds. Most combats, most combats never see that long. So like you go to cast a spell, and the magic just covers you with this, suddenly this resistance to everything. You probably can get through most of that combat taking only a little bit of damage. That could be pretty significantly cool. Then there's also things like in there, your gender changes for an hour, or you turn a bright color of like fuchsia. There's all these different things that can happen. And so one of the things that I have always wanted to do is I've wanted to add some wild magic to one of the other stodgier classes. And I didn't want to turn to the old boxes where like elves and dwarves were a specific race. So I didn't want to make it like this is the dwarf that has wild magic. So instead, I looked at it from a class perspective. And one of the biggest classes that I think has the most rigidity, even just narrative sake, are paladins. And so in my new source book, I created the paladins that follow the kaleidoscopic oath. And the kaleidoscopic oath is... Okay, whoa. So, first off, I know that was a jarring, you get to see my little technical issues situation. But I'm going to let you know a little secret. So, I was recording earlier. It's now 4 hours after I was recording that first part. My computer decided to completely and utterly freak out. It started opening windows. I think I may have had the microphone button pressed down on something or something. I don't know. But basically it flipped out in a big way. And so I'm recording the second half of the episode several hours later. I had to go back and rewatch that first clip to find out where I left off. And I left off, for you, it was only a few seconds ago, where I was talking about the kaleidoscopic oath paladin. For me, it's been several hours of fixing things and closing things and trying to make sure that my computer doesn't have a nasty virus, which it doesn't. It's just seems like some kind of user error. And now we're back. We're back again. For you, it was all of 5 seconds of womp, and for me, it was hours of dealing with things. But the good news is I refilled my drink, so we can take the last. It is brand new from the Soda Stream itself. Blackberry lemonade. But yeah, so let's pick up where we left off. We were talking about the kaleidoscopic oath paladin. So this is my way of turning a generally speaking, a super stodgy stuff shirt warrior of the Lord, in whatever Lord you may be serving, into more of a fun class to play, into a, yeah, I'm still a warrior, and I still am a warrior of a higher power, except instead of this higher power being justice, or this higher power being vengeance, or this higher power being a particular deity, I'm serving the idea. It's it's the Jurassic Park, Ian, what's his the actor, oh my god, I'm drawing a blank. The chaos theory guy, completely drawing a blank. But yeah, it is that, that's the force of nature, the force of creation that these paladins have decided to give their oath to, is they've given their oath to the concept of, without, there cannot be permanent order, and without having some semblance of randomness, some sense of literally the chaos of the world, the anarchy, the anarchic energies of the world help keep things moving and keep things fresh and keep things from becoming, this old and tired, stagnant, drudge of existence. And so these paladins, their power structures, what they get, aside from, normal everyday, I can paladin this, and I can paladin that, and I can smite, and I can lay on hands, and all that stuff, they also have, they can tap into, when they cast their spells, they possibly create some of these wild magic surges that I love so much. Obviously, I'm going to add that in. So, there's this added benefit of, quote unquote benefit, that you not only have this, a paladin that breaks the mold, a paladin that isn't, kneel down, worship the lords, and make sure that all of the baddies are taken care of. Yeah, that's not what this oath says. What this oath says is, look for the moments that, the moments before the landslide, when you see the pebbles move and it's coming, don't always be on the move. Don't let yourself become too complacent. Never sleep in the same place twice. That's one of my favorite parts of the oath, is, in my opinion, is going to be the fact that this paladin, especially if it's in a game where someone is, like, let's say they have a house, or they have a cottage or a castle, or you're staying in a particular dungeon, it's going to end up being, there's going to be that moment where the person playing the kaleidoscopic paladin goes, I need to sleep over there. Well, why? Because I slept over here just last week, and I can't sleep here again. I need to be on that. I need to be on that side of the room, or I can't be in this. Or because, again, it's a lot of the paladin oath stuff. It's not quite cut and dry. Maybe this particular paladin takes it as he can't sleep in the same building twice. They go back to the room, and he goes, "I'm going to sleep in the stable." Why? Because I can't sleep in the inn. We were here last night. I think that's going to be just a fun little role play moment. And one of the other things that these guys can do is they basically find a way to manipulate, in the same way that, like, a wild mage or a sorcerer who draws their power from wild magic, they find a way to tap into that chaos, into that anarchy, into and make it serve them. The kaleidoscopic paladin also finds a way to harness some of that kind of craziness, that unexpected stuff, into how they do battle, what they how they see the world, and it's going to be super cool in my opinion. I mean, and I'm sure some people are gonna look at this and go, but that's not how I do a paladin. My paladins are all like, shining armor and saving the damsel. This guy can totally save the damsel too, or the damsel dude. damsel, doodle, doodle. But whatever whatever he's doing, he can still do all those same things. He's just not doing it according to any kind of particular, like, deified law or anything like that. He is in fact serving the whim of the winds of fate. They blow weird. They change things how they go. I expect these guys are, Kaleidoscopic Paladin is probably going to be it's going to be that very rarely do you see all kinds of paladin characters that are like, I don't gamble because it's a sin or whatever. These are the guys that are going to be like, wait, random dice, I'm down. Like, is he going to go play blackjack? Absolutely not. That takes skill. But is he going to go sit at the roulette wheel for an hour and be like, 00, 00, 00, 9? I just, again, I am the kind of person that I like to see this kind of diversion from the norm in a game, and I like to, and as a designer, I like to give players an opportunity to be that branch away from the norm, the oddball in the group, if that's what they want to do. And so, hence the random factor of the Kaleidoscopic Knight, or the Kaleidoscopic Oath for Paladins. Now, as a designer, I also have to, again, this episode is based off of, I'm not trying to say that the only way you can build games is you got to have lots of random tables and it's got to be crazy, because that's also not true. Is you have to have a certain level of structure as well, because otherwise, especially I do a lot of miniature game building, and while there is a little bit of fun having some of the craziness, for people who used to play Warhammer Fantasy way back in the day before it was Age of Sigmar, there was a race of creatures called the Skaven that a lot of their special powers were all random, and random to the point where it was like either super, most of the time it was just a normal thing, but sometimes it would be crazy overpowered, and then every once in a while it would be horrible and detrimental to your army and probably blow itself up. I liked that. That was the army I played for years and years and years, and I liked that aspect of things, but I also knew that there was a point. I wasn't going to field an entire army filled with nothing but the crazy dice, because then I know I have no control over my forces. I can maybe hedge my bets a little bit here and there, but generally speaking, it's all going to come down to the dice, and that's where it blows tactics right out the window, is when it's all random. Orcs in a lot of Games Workshop products are very random, where they have where some of that randomness, some of that chaos has come out of it a little bit, where before in a similar fashion to how in a similar fashion to how the Skaven stuff could possibly do really well or not do well, or crazy hijinks happen. A lot of orc stuff did that same thing, but it was more along the lines of it would have a detrimental effect and then varying degrees of it being cool. Like, you very rarely did you have something that was like, oh my gosh, this is insane, and you very rarely had something, oh my gosh, this has just destroyed all of my tactics. They were less self-destructive and more just slightly weird and random. A lot of that has been removed, where now it's the random factor it goes from just working to working well. Games Workshop has taken a cue from a couple other games and has sort of pulled back on really detrimental effects, because again, if you're playing a competitive game and something bad happens, like it's just a rough die roll or a rough couple of die rolls, and then boom, your game is over. Depending on the kind of tournament you're in, that could spell the end of your entire competitive stretch. So I see where they're removing it, and then so as a designer, I look at this and I go, okay, I also have to take that into consideration. For instance, for those of you who watch this for Warzone content, you're about ready to get some. It's in the new Warzone game that Alex and I have created. That's currently now solidly in playtest for that main rule set. Is there really isn't a lot of random factor when it comes to getting my people to do things. If they're going to take an action, they're going to take an action, and the random factor comes into whether or not I hit or miss, whether or not I hurt you, whether or not you die, that kind of thing. There's not a lot of roll a die to see if this happens. There's a little bit of it here and there. The environmental effects for various, if you want to play on a Venusian swamp, or if you wanted to play in the tunnels of Mercury, those things might have a little more random to it. You play on a lightning storm, a planet that's being blasted by dark symmetry lightning storms. That's going to have a lot of random factor to it. But when it comes to the actual game itself, because we want to try and keep it fair and competitive, you have to be able to try and equal stuff out as much as you can. And so I've taken a little more of a hat tip to how GW has been doing things, where there are very few random factors that end super poorly. Most of the random, like any kind of random die roll that is determining a series of effects, or determining how strong something is. It's very rarely is there going to be a super negative, like unbelievably low effect. You're at least going to have something function maybe at a lesser degree, but it's still going to function, because we want you to be able to count on your models. We want you to be able to, especially in a game like Warzone, where it's starting off as a very small skirmish game, we don't want you to spend half of your game fighting with your own models to get them to do stuff. These guys are supposed to be the elites. They're supposed to be the soldiers that you've called upon to do these missions. And frankly, a mega corporation is not going to call upon schmucks to do important mission work. That's just not going to happen. The Dark Legion have their Undead Legionnaires, which are generally pretty meat baggy. They're not great at what they do, but they if they get their little claws on you, if they get their assault rifles up, and their Kratak assault rifles, names of stuff in Warzone is so good. The Ashnagaroth have your machine gun. Sorry, the Belzarak. There's just crazy stuff that comes out of the Dark Legion. But I digress. The way that this, the way that the game plays is that it's designed to be as tactical as possible. So I know it's actually a perfect point for me to make. The last version of Warzone, the one that was done by a company called Protoss, or Protoss, I think it's Protoss. They had a card element, a deck building element to their game, where you would build a deck of kind of strategy cards that during the course of the game you could play to either activate more guys, or get something to do somebody special, or boom, this was just a flesh wound. A lot of specific things that could happen. But in my theater of design, even if you do get a chance, like you're the one that gets to build your deck, it's still going to be random which ones you have in your hand at any given moment. And it's also not something that your character, your opponent, can plan for. They can know, okay, he probably has these cards because he's this kind of player, or I've already seen one of those, he might have another one, or something along those lines. But it's not something that you could ever truly plan for. And it creates in what in miniature games what I call the gotcha moment. A gotcha mechanic is anything that I can do that you were, by looking at the table, unaware that I was capable of. And in some cases, the gotcha mechanics can be something like a hidden model that pops out of terrain that you might not have realized. Well, in my design mentality, I'm going to try to basically say, you're going to let your opponent know that you've got this model. You might not tell him that, okay, he's in this building, or you might have to tell him, I have deployed my, Brotherhood Mortificator. Here are the two places he might be. I want you to be able to have tactical. Whenever I design a game, I want there to, especially miniature games, I want there to be that tactical possibility. And for tactics to be able to be formed, you have to be informed of what's going on the tabletop. And those kinds of strategy cards, the sort of like, oh, now is the perfect time for me to play this, those are gotcha moments. And those gotcha moments, there's nothing that I can do as a player to take care of that. There's nothing I can do that allows me to know what you've got in your deck. There's nothing that I can do. And if there is, then why are they in the game? That's where that comes down to is, okay, well, if I want it to be tactics, maybe players play with their hands open. But if that's the case, if you're playing with your hands open and everybody knows what you can do, I'm just going to try and avoid those situations, or I'm just going to basically go, okay, well, at some point he's going to ignore a wound. So they're designed to be gotcha moments, which is fine if that's what you want in your game. I don't, and when it comes to a miniature game, because I don't want the tactics of the moment to be erased by I have this random card in my hand. So in a similar vein, command points in Warhammer 40,000, they are definitely a random factor. You can design them into your force and you whatever, but you don't know what you're going to spend them on. You don't know when they're going to be spent. So they are a little bit of a gotcha moment. But at least in that instance, if you are a well-read player, and your opponent is not a jerk, and you could say, hey, what kind of stratagems do you have access to? Everything is open. You know everything that your opponent could possibly play. And the list is not that long anymore. I mean, like, back in 8th edition, the list had gotten pretty long. But overall, there's only a handful of things that you know that they can do all the time. And there's, a handful of things that come out with E-Codex that you can go, okay, that's something I got to remember. That's something I got to remember. And yeah, it might be extra stuff that you got to try and keep in your noggin. But generally speaking, a lot of it does very, you can tell, okay, he's going to be able to reroll some dice if he screws them up. He's going to be able to maybe move a little faster, like a lot of the same stuff. And when it comes down to it, you can look at the battlefield and there are no secrets. It's an open game list, there's no secrets as to, well, what does this guy have? No, I know exactly what he has. And all of these things, the decision to remove templates from the game and include just basically measurable areas of effect, those are, again, ways to eliminate that sort of fudgy factor that can cause players to argue, can cause someone to, in one game, get their way, and then in the next game, the die roll falls differently, and the judge says, well, no, it's supposed to be this other way. It can cost people entire games by interpretation and luck of the draw alone. And when it comes to miniature games, you don't want that, especially if you're going to be competitive. Now, if you're not playing competitive, you're just playing have a good time and fun and just super fun, then yeah, it doesn't matter if there's that extra little chaos factor or that extra little, oh my god, you drew one thing and then bleh, everything imploded. Yeah, that's fine. Board games, I'm all down for, if you can add, if it's part of the board game to have a gotcha element, it's part of the board game. It's part of the main rule set, and because most board games aren't tactical board games. Some of them are, things like Axis and Allies and Risk. Those tend to be tactical, but they also tend to have fewer full-on gotchas, as they might have, like, ooh, you played a special gambit, or I get to roll a different kind of die than you, or something like that. But generally speaking, it's a pretty structured, a pretty structured design element. And then, as you move a little further into, like, role-playing games, I am all for random and weird in role-playing games. I'm all for there being tables within tables within tables, if that's what it takes to make the role-playing game experience unique. Because, so in my mind, the way that works is, I want every character, even if they're the exact same build. If you make a wood, I will use the kaleidoscopic paladin. If you make a wood elf paladin, and these are his stat line numbers, because you used the point array out of the book, and you put them in the exact same spots, you bought the exact same equipment, you chose the same spells, everything is exactly the same. I want something in the game to make this guy stand out from the next guy who does that same build. Whether it is random encounters that they have to deal with, whether it is random age, weight, and height, whether it is, in the case of the Kaleidoscope Paladin, everything you do is a little bit wacky. I want... It is unlikely that everything is exactly the same. That everything is directly the same kind of creature or the same kind of stat line. It's the reason why, honestly, when I run D&D for people, if I do a pack of goblins, to come fight somebody, more than likely, I will vary up the stats a little bit. Like, I might have one guy be a little not quite as strong, not quite as tough, but maybe he's a little faster, or maybe he's the spellcaster. Or I might have replace a couple of the swords with spears. Just little things here and there, because again, it is unrealistic that these goblins, in a society of thousands living in a warren, that they're going to send out 7 identical twins to go deal with the player characters or whatever. Because a role-playing game is not supposed to be, again, a lot of these are my opinions, because a role-playing game is not supposed to be just math. You're not supposed to be just mathing everything out and math hammering your way to victory. It's one of the reasons why min-maxing makes me a little crazy, because I would much rather you play a character than a set of numbers. And you should be all about the personality and the background rather than the powers and the stats. If you want to play powers and stats, play a video game or play a board game where you grab a copy of Massive Darkness. It's a super fun game, but effectively role play is out the window. You're just a set of numbers on a board running around killing monsters. Play Descent. That's where you start getting into the. It doesn't matter, the chaos and randomness of real life design is irrelevant, because now we're in this hard and fast rule set for a board game. My character moves X number of squares. Well, what if I jump up on this picnic table that's drawn on the board? It's just drawn on the board. Whereas in a role-playing game, if I say, what happens if I jump up on the picnic table, the DM says, well, cool, you've got an advantage against the goblin because he can barely hit your toes. That's what I mean by the erratic nature, the multiple choice, multiple tables, multiple options, why that exists in a much deeper form in a role-playing game that I'm designing than it would be in a board game. And definitely when it comes down to all the way down to like a miniatures game, I think that's kind of the the scale of where I start getting away from super random design, risk versus reward, to more structured, is I lean as I go from like role playing game to board game RPG crossovers to hardcore board games to like full on like Euro style, points calculated at the end of the games, and then into like miniature games where the tactics almost rely on your rules being kind of set in stone, or as set in stone as they can be. And so that's kind of where I am when it comes to that sort of design element. That's not to say that I think that board games that have got super random weirdness in it, that I don't think they're any fun. That's not to say anything like that. I will say that I am not a huge fan of very super crunchy, down to the last little element, of plus minus 0.5% style role playing games. When you math it down to the equations are so deep and so so calculated that the game ceases to be about the element in the story, because those things don't have you can't quantify the story. And that's when I think when a game gets really down to just crunching numbers that bad, it's not for me. It's not my style of game, and you won't see me design that style of game. I'm just not comfortable petting people in that way. But whereas you see something like what I, for my stuff I do for Warzone, is even if there is a random factor, the random factor is going to be calculatable. You'll be able to figure, like, I'll be able to say, okay, if my guy does this thing and is successful, the die roll that I've got coming next is going to either be mildly successful or really crazy cool successful. I'm going to know that that gauge in there. Because you'll be able to bet on the fact that if I hit, this is what I'm capable of doing. Whereas the tactics factor comes into, when am I activating which models? Do I react to this? I only have so many reactions per turn with certain models. Do I react now, or should I wait because he's got another guy back there that might run across this alley? Do I take a shot at him then, or do I go ahead and take my shot now at the easier target because I don't know what's going to happen next? I want your tactics to be based off of strategic thought, not, oh, I rolled a 15, so okay, here we go. Like it shouldn't be based about the random roll. It should be based about what you figure out and what you can calculate on the battlefield. That should be really the test. The test between the generals, the opponents. All right, I have officially talked on enough for this second half of the clip. Again, sorry about the weird thing in the middle. Computers, what are they gonna do? I am gonna try, if I can, record the 40K game and have that be next week's episode. I'll try. I don't know if I'll be able to make it work, just because of trying to get like an overhead rig for the game and that sort of thing. But if I can't, I'm thinking that next week might be another hobby day. I haven't had I did the paint pot or the paint pot bunker review, and I think I want to. I think I might want to have another hobby day next week. I don't know. We'll see. Put in the comments if you've got something else you'd rather talk about. Yeah, you know how it is. Everybody be out there. Be safe. Try not to wear a mask if you have to go out and about. Just be safe. Really, I want all of you guys to make sure that when we're all done with this stupid quarantine thing and the virus is no longer a constant reminder of hey, stay indoors and don't go in big groups. And when this is eventually gone, I want you to be around, and I want you to be able to enjoy yourselves. And just like right now, I want you to be able to go out, put a smile on your face and someone else's face, and play some games. We'll see you next week.